with me, but you could quiz me on these tapes, and I'm sure I could score in the 90 percentile somewhere, remembering everything that I've said, because I put everything in story association form. When I read information, I associate it. I see it in my mind being played out like an actual live experience, where I relate one concept to another. I always relate things, so I find ways of relating one piece of information to something that I already know. I don't know why I do that. It just always seemed to work for me, and I remember things well. I've never taken a memory course, but I'm sure if I did, I would probably find that the techniques that I use for association of ideas and building on known things are probably ways that memory technicians use anyway. Well, what I wanted to bring up about memory was the fact that quite often I run into people that you're going to have to remember a lot of things here. So besides, memory is a sign of a clear, strong, powerful mind. That's what I wanted to bring up. Many people who think they do not have a good memory are just plain wrong. You see, memory is a natural function of, the mind itself. Everybody is capable of remembering infinite amounts of information. Okay? The problem is that we block that quite often. You hear people complaining about a failing or a poor memory, or they say, "Oh, gee, I just can't remember anything anymore. My memory is getting so bad." Well, that's not true. I mean, it may be true their memory's failing, but the memory itself inside still is there, and it is still capable of functioning at any time, at any age, unless there happens to be some sort of breakdown of tissue matter from disease or something. But a memory isn't necessarily bad or good, even though people claim that it is. You see, there is always the capability of a fully functional and correctly working memory. Memory disorder is caused by a number of things. One, lack of interest. People just don't make any attempt to even learn how to remember things. You remember things because you want to. You make a concerted effort to say to yourself, "I want to remember this." And when you do that, quick little pieces of machinery go into gear in there, make some quick associations, and you make an effort to concentrate on something for a moment and remember exactly what it is. I still remember my phone number, years ago of most all of my jobs. I worked as an agent back in the 60s in the musical business, and I remember my phone number even in Chicago at the time there. And I remember my address and phone numbers when I was a child, because those were important things, so people could find me, or I could find my parents or whatever. And I associate things well, so that's how you remember them. Most people don't remember. The number one cause is they don't make any effort to. They have no interest in remembering, so their memory just keeps, they don't use it, so then they complain about it. Another common problem is overload of personal troubles and problems. If a person is suffering from nervous tension, strain on the job, whatever, these things preoccupy our thoughts. They frankly get in the way. They're just kind of like filters or whatever in our brain, and then you can't remember anything because you're so preoccupied with stress, problems, doubt, things like that. Fixed ideas and mentally disturbing thoughts get in the way. If you are a person given to following perhaps strange ideas and organizations and so forth that preoccupy you with too many fantasies and so forth, that will certainly get in the way. It's not healthy to preoccupy ourselves with illogical thinking and fantasies. It's particularly dangerous, like the movies and so forth we have with all the violence and so forth. It creates fear in people inside. Even though we might have a dramatic hero on the screen that the ending, beats the bad guys, you've just witnessed 90 minutes of a very immoral, violent way of dealing with things in life. That has an effect on people also. That can cause fears and so forth inside of you that can actually affect your memory also. People program themselves also that they have a bad memory. One of the first steps now to learn is the power of your subconscious inside of yourself. Okay? Your subconscious is programmable just like a computer is. Our brains are not so much different than a computer, and oddly enough, that's because scientists designed the computer around the way the brain works. They already learned that in the brain there are all these connectors that go off on all the time, and they designed a computer around the same thing. For those of you not familiar with a computer, the whole thing is built on a 1 and a 0. It's called binary code. 1 is on and 0 is off. And there are little switches inside, literally. They just go off on, off on, off on. And a certain arrangement of switches means the letter A. Some other arrangement of switches, on, off, on, whatever it is, means B, C, etc. And from there they've built up processors that imitate what the brain is doing in very simple format. Okay? So your subconscious inside of yourself can be programmed. Actually, it's being programmed all the time. It's just if you're not taking any care about it, it's going to get programming just kind of randomly on its own, however life deals it out. But your subconscious is open for business all the time. And as this pertains to memory, you can say to yourself, oh, I have a bad memory. I just can't remember anything. And you say that kind of offhandedly to people as an excuse when you can't remember something. Well, what you do every time you do that, you reinforce your subconscious that you really do have a bad memory. It becomes convinced that you have a bad memory. It also picks up your feelings why you really have a bad memory. Your lack of interest, your problems, your troubles, perhaps embarrassment or whatever. You know, if you feel like you're not an intelligent person, you don't want to venture a guess at an answer, so you just hide. You don't even want to give one. Whatever the reasons may be, your subconscious really knows. You can't fool your subconscious. It is you. So if you program your brain, your subconscious, into believing that you have a bad memory, you reinforce that. Also, your material subconscious mind that's in there feeds information all the time, or attempts to at least, to your spiritual subconscious, your spiritual self. Your spiritual self will accept things that are based on wisdom, that are not illogical, that become part of you. And if you have become a person that continually builds up an energy in your subconscious of not being able to do things like having a poor memory, your subconscious and your spirit side picks up on that also. And you affect your spiritual growth. You start to form blocks in your spiritual side, not allowing it to grow also. So power of spirit can also be little blocks in there too. So we have to kind of be careful in there, because if we give our subconscious an order, like, I have a bad memory, it'll believe you. And it knows you do have a bad memory because you're not able to remember things because you're blocking it, you're not trying it, or whatever the problem may be. So your subconscious does take things literally. If a person can clear up their disturbing thoughts, their memory will return. As opposed to saying to yourself, I have a lousy memory and I just can't remember a phone number or anything, or gee, I'm sorry I forgot your birthday or whatever. This person can actually learn to turn that around. And this is one thing you can begin working on right away, because we can all make improvements on our memory. And simple ways to do it is through concentration. You can learn to have a strong memory. You can start programming yourself that I have a beautiful memory. It's wonderful. I can remember everything. And you can concentrate on that. And as you do, as you start putting energy into the idea that you now have a good memory, your memory will start improving. And as you start finding out the things that, keep you from having a good memory, many of which I've mentioned already, and some of them may hit home with some of you people, when you find out those things and admit it and start getting them out of the way, the memory gets even better. And then you'll find out, gee, it actually works. My memory does improve. I can start associating things, and I can remember things, and it gets better, and it's not only useful, it just makes you feel better about yourself. Then you'll suddenly find out very quickly that you can program your subconscious. And that's a very good thing to understand. If you're not aware that you can, you need to know that, because that can be a major, major stumbling block and reason why people are not successful in life. They do not create a future for themselves because they have no knowledge or faith in the fact that they can program tomorrow. They can program your subconscious to go out there and be very powerful and perform for you. Well, let me give you 2 or 3 ideas on how you can begin to develop concentration. Of course, one idea would be, as we discussed on the meditation tape, the meditation exercise itself for concentrating on your own respiration or breath. We talked about that. If you didn't listen to that tape, that's a very good one to listen to before you listen to this one, because there's a lot of logical ideas and theory on there. They're going to help you with the stuff we're doing here, because you're going to do more and more meditating all the time. I'm not talking about the type of meditating where you're just going to sit on a hilltop and gaze at the sun off whatever